Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm glad that you've come back today, and I really didn't intend to film this day, but I know that everybody is looking at this time of the year for some tried and true recipes for sweets that they can share with their friends over the holiday season. So we have several that we make from one year to the next, and really once you start to make them, it kind of signals the beginning of the holiday season. So today I'm going to share with you recipes that are tried and true that we love a lot. And they're coming out of this ratty old family reunion book, the one with the pages that are kind of half loose, that came from different members of my family. And I'm going to start today with butter tarts. And well, this seems to be a Canadian thing. I think word is getting out that these are really good tarts for the holiday season. So we're going to start there. And today I am going to make my own crust, which is something I don't normally do. I usually buy the little pre-made tart shells in the grocery store. But it just so happens that today our two grocery stores were completely out. And so I'm going to be making my own today. The problem I find with making my own, if this can be a problem, is that the crust is so flaky that it's sometimes hard to get them out of the muffin pan. So keep that in mind as you're making this, that the ones you buy at the grocery store might not only save you time, but might be easier to get out of the tart pans. Okay, I'll gather everything up that I need for the pie crust, and I will whip that up so that we can move on to the filling. If at a later time you want to see the pie crust being made, then let me know in the comments below, which is where you'll also find all the recipes from today. And I will do a really quick video on just the pie crust. In fact, I might just include the recipe for it below too, but I won't go through all of the methods for making it. So I'll be right back after this and we'll get started. I've just taken this out of the refrigerator. It's firmed up quite a bit, and I think that it's ready for us to use now. I've floured my surface here a bit. And I'm just going to take the disc out and put it onto the floured board. And I am going to make sure that it's well floured on both sides before I get started. I'm also going to flour my rolling pin. And this old tried and true recipe was one that my brother handed off to me, I want to say in 1980 or 82, somewhere in that neighborhood. His name's Jim, and he always has loved to cook and to can. He's also a hunter and a fisherman, and we all use this method of making our pie crust. So this recipe actually came from our grandmother, Jenny Allen, and we basically use it for everything because it's so simple to make. My aunt at one point thought she could improve upon it, so she developed one that had an egg in it, which this one doesn't, but and it worked great too. There was nothing wrong with it. But in my old cookbook, in our old family recipe book, I still have my grandma's recipe in there. So that's what I use. It's simple. It's a lard recipe, and for a long time it wasn't, you know, considered really healthy to cook with lard, but people are understanding the benefits of it more now. I am just using these little old bake-right pans, which have been serving me for about 40 years now, I don't know, a long time. And the lid off of one of my canning jars. But you can do whatever works for you that gives you, you know, a good 1/2 inch around the size of that. A glass would work, or something along that line as well. And I never remember the ratio for this. The ratio that I'm talking about is how many of these I have to cut out to equal the amount of filling that it makes. So it's always by trial and error. You know, you roll them out and you start off, you don't have enough dough rounds cut out, so you make some more dough, and then you have too many dough rounds and you have to make another batch of filling, and so forth, till pretty soon you have to give up and just stop what you're doing. So the rounds, this dough might be a little soft yet, but it's not bad. And I'll just start to set them onto the pan as I'm cutting them out. I believe this recipe makes around a dozen. I want to say that, but we'll find out soon enough. I will definitely cut out enough to fill this pan, and we'll fill it and see if we need to get another disc out, because as I said earlier, I made enough. I used the whole pound of lard, so I made enough to make 4 discs, so I have them reserved in the refrigerator. And if I don't use them all for this project, then I can definitely use them to make a pie. So I'm just gonna take up the scraps. And this is one of those recipes where you can actually put the scraps back together one time. You know, there's some recipes you can't do that because it makes it really tough. But that doesn't seem to hurt this, because the dough is quite soft, and it never seems to hurt to roll it out the second time. It doesn't get tough, is what I'm trying to get at in my clumsy way. And there we go. I'm just going to finish rolling these ones out, and then I'll move on to the filling. There. Now, I'm just going to bring this here in front of me. I hope you can see it well enough. And I'm just going to press it down into the pan and make sure that you get it into the corners, to the edges. Try not to cut it with your fingernails, which I can do sometimes. It doesn't take too long to get them in there. And this is probably the trickiest part of this whole recipe right here, is just getting them into the pan. Now, if you wanted to make these really pretty, I'm sure there's all sorts of things you could do to do that. Make them a little bigger and flute the edges and things like that, but that doesn't seem to be the Canadian way. We make them to eat them, and they're just as delicious without fluted edges. So whatever makes you happy, that's what you should do. I'm going to get a spoon so we can use it. Actually, maybe the spoon will work just fine. Now, after I stopped videoing the making of the filling, I looked at the recipe again and realized that I had forgotten to add the milk. So you need 2 tablespoons of milk in this mixture too. And you need to make sure that it's well mixed. And then you're just going to spoon it in. And you want to fill it about 3/4 full, not more than that, because it swells up during cooking and it will go over the edge of your pie shell, and then you have the devil's own time trying to get the pie shell that's been soaked in the filling out of the pan. So try to avoid that if you can. So it looks like I'm using about 1 full dessert spoon of filling in, or I guess today we're calling them tablespoons, but a dessert spoonful in each shell. So I'm going to set that aside. And I have more than 3, so I'm just going to get out another disc, roll it out, I'll get this one filled, and then I'll be back. Okay, it turned out exactly as I said it would. I ended up with too many rounds now, I'm pretty sure about that because I don't think I have enough filling here. Oh, I might have enough to do this second pan. So maybe I can give you an idea of how much it takes, how much filling to how many rounds. And yes, 16 in fact. There we go. Now I ended up with, I think, around 8 extra rounds. So now maybe you'll get what I was talking about. So I gave you bad advice back there. These aren't going in for 15 minutes at 450. Let me just grab the recipe to make sure I'm getting this right. These are going into the oven for 8 minutes at 450, and then we're going to turn the oven down without opening the door. And we're going to cook them for 15 to 20 minutes longer, or until they're not, well, till they've been cooked all the way through and they've puffed up in the middle and then settled back down, and then they're ready to go. Now next out of our book is coming shortbread, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but here is the regular recipe, and then I'm doubling it over here, which is what I'm going to do today. So this is sort of a shortbread that's whipped, but it's not a whipped shortbread recipe. I think it's just a matter of how long you mix your shortbread that makes it whipped or not. So let's get at it. I'm putting it into my big stand mixer bowl, and in there we need 2 cups of flour. Oof, it'd be best if I didn't get it all over me. Chances are good that I will. And you know, in our house, I know that as soon as I start making shortbread that Christmas is not far off. We need 1 cup of icing sugar, or powdered sugar. I'm not sure what they might call it where you are, but we need that. And then we need 1 cup of cornstarch. And I'm just using a Fleshman's cornstarch. And this is what I think gives it the texture, is the cornstarch. Now, to all of that, we are going to add, and I'm using salted butter today, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of butter. I will put the recipe in the description box below, so you don't have to try and hit stop or pause and read it off the paper, because I know that that can be a bit of a pain. Now this recipe, you can see that I'm doubling it, and I have doubled it many times before. That's how we came to this formula, because the one batch just makes not quite enough for us, although it does seem like we're giving quite a bit away. So probably if I just did 1 batch for the 2 of us, we'd have plenty to get us through the holidays. So there's 1 cup, and then we need 1/2 for this recipe. But as I said, this recipe is doubled. So definitely read the description box below to get the measurements for a regular size batch. I hope that your preparations for your holidays are all going great. I know that my American friends and family have Thanksgiving here in a few days. Here in Canada, we're finished with Thanksgiving for this year. But really, when you start your Thanksgiving is when we start preparations for Christmas here. And I'm sure that you just fold one into the next one. So now I'm going to put this onto the stand mixer and get busy mixing it. Now I have whipped up the shortbread, and I don't know if you can see or not, but it's quite soft. And I have whipped it a great deal, so pumped some air into it too, which makes it a little lighter and fluffier. If you're going to use the batter to make thumbprint cookies or for decorating, then you may want to whip it less and just scoop it as you go. You can scoop out a little scoop and make it into a round ball, and then you're able to press it down with your forks that have been covered with icing sugar or cornstarch, or you can make a thumbprint. Just stick your thumb in the middle of the cookie. Today I am just going to put little balls down, and I am not going to do anything terrifically to them. They are a bit ragged and we don't mind that. You can give them a little press. They should be about even thickness because you want them to kind of cook all at the same time. So just lay them down. I'm using them on parchment paper because it certainly does make them easier to get up. And I will carry on doing this, and then I'm going to put these into a 300-degree oven, which I have preheating, and they're going to go into the oven for 20 to 25 minutes or until the edges are lightly browned. And these definitely are a favorite. Everybody's looking for them, especially at this time of the year when you have the hot chocolate out and you want to dip a little something into your hot chocolate. This is the perfect cookie to do that. I will show you the finished product at the end of the video. Now here are the shortbread, and they don't look like they're very browned, which they aren't. I'll turn one over here for you. See, they're just lightly browned on the bottom and nice and crisp, so that when you bite into them, they break apart. So they're very tender. So if you're looking for a recipe that will satisfy your shortbread cravings, this is probably the one for you. We're going to start this recipe with a big bowl that's microwave safe. And into that we're going to put 1/4 cup of butter. And I'm not even sure where I got this recipe from, but I believe it was my mother-in-law, Kathy. And she made this for every family event. And all of the small kids really enjoyed it, and I know that it was fairly simple for her to make, so we definitely appreciated her in our family. Now we need a 1/2 cup of peanut butter. And then these two things we're going to put into the microwave along with 1 cup of butterscotch chips. Now I'm going to put these on standby while I prepare the pan, because once this comes out of the microwave, everything's going to happen pretty quickly. So I'm just going to set this aside. Now I'm just lining this pan with some parchment paper, and you could definitely do this by just putting butter onto the pan, but I'm going to make it so it's easy to pull out, because all the tricks to make these things faster are what we're looking for. So now this is going to go into the microwave, and I'm going to watch it And about every 10 seconds, I'm going to give it a stir because we don't want this to get bubbly. There we go, we have it all melted, and that took about a total of 40 seconds. I did 20 seconds and stopped and stirred it, and then I did another 20 seconds. And then the recipe calls for 8 ounces of multicolored marshmallows. And in this case, 8 ounces happens to be 250 grams, so a whole bag. And then we just stir these in as quickly as we can because it doesn't take long for the peanut butter butterscotch chip mixture to get hardened again. So we stir it all up. Make sure that every little bit of marshmallow is covered. And then lay it over here, fold it into the pan, and level it off. Now we're going to pack this down here as good as we can. It's making a lot of noise, sorry about that. Pack it down, which makes it easier for cutting later. And there it is. And once this has had a chance to cool, it cuts easily into pieces, and I will show you the finished result at the end. Now, this butterscotch confetti has been in the fridge overnight, and you can see that it's a little tough to cut, which is good because that means it's going to hold its shape. Now you can cut these as big or as small as you want, and it won't make a difference except for presentation. If you're trying to get something that's perfectly formed, then you're going to be a little more cautious about it. The pan has a bit of a curve to the bottom of it. So if you're trying to be fancy, you're going to cut the curve off. I am not trying to be fancy, so I'm not worried about the curve. It's fine by me. And so I'm just going to cut them into about 1 or 1.5 inch squares. And then I will put them on a plate so that you can see what they look like. And there we go, folks. That's what a plate of butterscotch confetti looks like. It brings a lot of color to any tray that you're making with sweets, or they work perfectly if you're doing a cookie exchange. The only thing to keep in mind if you're doing some sort of an exchange is that there is peanuts in this. So if you're being cautious about taking something that you know, might cause people an issue if they have allergies, then you might want to keep this one at home. And I'm sure that if you did, your family will thank you. I cut this one in half so that you can see what they look like inside. And turn that around for you. And there you go. That's what a Canadian butter tart looks like. You may call it something else where you live, but here we just call it a butter tart, and they're delightful. If you haven't tried them before, you really should add these to your holiday sweets tray. I hope you enjoyed these offerings today, and that if you have, that you will like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends and on your social media. That would be most helpful to me. And I look forward to bringing you some more recipes over the coming months. But for now, I just want to wish you the best of the holidays wherever you are, and hope that you take care. And I will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.